Hello and welcome to this session on outdoor learning in the curriculum for Wales. This is the penultimate session, so session 19 out of the 20 session course. And we're going to focus today on bringing everything so far we've covered together in looking at how to become sector leading in outdoor learning and trying to put outdoor learning in the heart of your school's curriculum. If this is your first session, so welcome, thank you for coming. And all the other sessions, if you are interested, are available on the Nature Days shop. Just start with a bit of housekeeping. Probably used to this by now, but obviously please keep your microphones on mute. I'm recording the session, so the session is going to be sent out to you. I know it's a really busy time in schools and lots of schools don't have the time to actually access these sessions as they are coming out live. So this will be sent to you as a recording. If you've got any comments, please put them in the chat function. If you're watching this as a recording, then please contact me through my Twitter handle or through Facebook or by email, or you can do an inquiry in Nature Days website as well. We might be doing breakout rooms, but again, there's not many people who are taking part live, so we may not have the breakout rooms, but I might leave it there so that's something you can do in school as a follow-up. So the outline of the session today, the aims of it is to try and provide you with a framework to become sector leading. So thinking about all the aspects of outdoor learning that we've covered so far and ways in which you can fully embed it across every aspect of your school. And the way I'm going to do that is by using the Learning Outside the Classroom, Learning Beyond Quality Kite Mark framework. So we're going to be following that to help you get there. And this includes making a commitment to your learning outdoors, so trying to include it in your school's ethos and your vision, as well as any key policies that you've got. Appointing a outdoor learning coordinator so that somebody's in charge of it all. How to use your outdoor learning in school development. So we're talking about policy level now, so including it in your SDP, adding it to your day-to-day running of the school, making sure that the outdoor learning is meaningful, integrating outdoor learning into your planning and offering a range of outdoor learning opportunities. Making the best use of the outdoor learning opportunities that you are undertaking, so using your school grounds to the best effect, your local learning area, ensuring that there is breadth and progression in your outdoor learning, and involving local providers, either businesses or support, to help you, encourage you to do even better outdoor learning. Monitoring and evaluating your outdoor learning. So how do you monitor the impact of it? How to evaluate the outdoor learning experiences that you've undertaken so that it influences any future planning of other outdoor learning. What is the impact, or how to make sure that you're looking at the impact of outdoor learning on the quality of your education, and also on wider impacts on the learners' experiences as a whole. So things like careers, those integral skills in the curriculum for Wales, life skills, health and well-being as well. We're going to do a bit on risk management as well, how to make sure that you've got robust risk management procedures within your school and how to implement your risk management procedure and make sure that the students are involved in that. And then last, we're going to be looking at sharing best practice. So how do you communicate your achievements and support other settings, but also how to look at whole school projects in ways in either collecting badges or generating a whole ethos around specific things, such as examples such as plastic-free schools or eco schools, and how you bring that and outdoor learning into your sector leading practice as well. So as I said, this session on becoming sector leading is following this framework from the Council for Learning Outside the Classroom, MARC. Now, I helped with writing this framework with the Council, and it's a holistic way of embedding learning outside the classroom into your school setting. And their definition of learning outside the classroom is any learning beyond, the basics that you should have to provide in terms of your curriculum. So it's using your school grounds, your local learning area, school trips, residentials, expeditions, but also bringing in visitors and having experience that are beyond what you have to do as a basic level for covering your curriculum. Now, if you're interested in achieving the MARC, If you think that you are confident in the way that you're delivering your learning outside the classroom and you think you're covering all aspects of what I go through today, then you might want to apply for the mark, and you can apply direct to just fill in a tracker form, and then we'll assess you and you might be given a bronze, silver or gold mark. The council also, if you're just starting on your journey in outdoor learning and all of this sounds like something you're nowhere near, then they also have something called a Learning Beyond mentoring program, and it provides you with expert guidance and support to get you on this journey to embed a whole school approach. So again, if you think, oh, we're nowhere near here, it's also quite good to start with the mentoring process, because your mentor will help you to embed it as you are developing. And it works really well with the new curriculum, because as you're changing things in school, you can make sure you're changing them with the outdoor learning at the heart of it. So this framework, which we're going to go through on the slides, is provided in this progress tracker if you do the quality mark, and it's a great scaffold for you to follow when you're starting out. So you think, right, where do I go next? What do I need to implement next? But it also provides you with, if you've embedded a lot of outdoor learning already, it provides you with a really good self-evaluation tool to look at your established practice. So starting, first of all, you may not try and put this bit into the first aspect of your outdoor learning. This might have to come after you've been doing some outdoor learning already. So if you're trying to make a commitment to outdoor learning, you're trying to embrace more outdoor learning into your school so you can start to prioritize it. This isn't really something you can start with. However, with the Curriculum for Wales, of course, the first step, we're actually designing your curriculum at the moment. And the first thing you did was to create a vision for the new curriculum in your school. So it might be that this actually is a good starting point for you to try and make a commitment to outdoor learning, because when you revisit that school vision for the new curriculum, which you will be doing periodically, especially when it's starting in September, you may want to think, right, is this actually got any outdoor learning aspects within it? And can we use it to help us start on our journey towards an outdoor learning based curriculum for Wales? So think about the ethos that you've got behind your vision for the new curriculum, and see whether there's aspects of the outdoor learning you can embed within that vision, or whether you can take parts of that vision and say, yeah, outdoor learning can achieve that. And therefore you're using it as a tool to implement more outdoor learning and making it much more meaningful because it's following your vision. So you then obviously, once you've got your vision, you need to embrace this, and you do this by looking at your school's ethos, your values, your mission statement, or whatever you put in next, your aims as a school. And so if you consider what your school's vision is, and then keep in mind what your outdoor learning is aiming to achieve, then you can make sure that your vision is being achieved by increasing the breadth and the depth of the outdoor learning that you're doing. So I'm sure in your vision or your ethos is going to be ensuring there's progression, also aspects of the 4 purposes, and those can really be adapted through outdoor learning and achieved through outdoor learning. So using that as your vehicle is a really good way of really committing to it. And a simple way to do this is when you're undertaking your insect or your ads, when you're actually looking to revisit your vision, if you just take a bit of time when you're doing that to actually go outside in your school grounds and just use that opportunity to inspire any changes that you make in your vision. And it just means that you've actually taken that into account. It's amazing what a difference it makes when you actually change location to being outside, to how much you actually involve the outdoors in what you're doing, whether it's a vision statement or whether it's mission statement or whether it's a policy that you're drawing up or planning. Now, the school vision that you've got, it needs to be, of course, implemented through the inclusion in your school policies. So we're now backing up that vision with the crux of policy making within your school. And as a starting point, probably the easiest thing to do is to have an outdoor learning policy. And this, of course, will identify what outdoor learning you're expecting to take place across the school and how you expect outdoor learning to be implemented. Now, I'd go through what could be in an outdoor learning policy in the whole school approach session of this 20-week course. So if you're interested in that, then you can have a look at that. We're not going to go through how to undertake an outdoor learning policy here. However, there is a lot more opportunities to put outdoor learning into a policy, and especially the key ones. So if you want to make sure that you're covering it across the board, so it's properly embedded, realistically, the best thing to do is to appoint an outdoor learning coordinator. And then their job would be to look at all those other key policies and see how we can put outdoor learning at the heart of these policies as well. So these are just some of the policies that I think you should have outdoor learning placed within them, and making sure that you are covering it across the board so that everybody knows that it is a priority. School development plan or school improvement plan, whatever you use, really the key driver in all things that you do in your school. And if you've got outdoor learning as one of your priorities, then you really are making a commitment and you're prioritizing that. You're also going to be setting targets, which is what you do with your SDP, and you have to relay that to any support officers or any governors, and the progress that you've made, you're being held accountable for that. So it's a really good way to drive you forward. Within the other policies in your school, different schools have got different names for different policy, but you will have something which is to do with teaching and learning, whether it's a curriculum policy or it's a policy for each subject or each AOLE or a teaching and learning policy. But whatever tells you how to do the job of teaching and learning, then again, really, if you want outdoor learning at the heart, we need to make sure that it is meaningful. So it's therefore got to be into the teaching and learning policy. So thinking about the teaching and learning policy, is it got all about pedagogies? Can you include outdoor learning as a pedagogy? Can you include what you expect your learners to be doing in terms of experiential learning, going on trips, going outside and exploring things, testing concepts? So you can really break down exactly what the role of outdoor learning is in the teaching and learning in your school. The health and safety policy is going to cover things like trips and being outside, etc. However, what I think you need to make sure that it's got included in it is your risk management procedure. So if in outdoor learning, we are trying to achieve that health and safety, that health and well-being AOLE, looking at providing opportunities for managing risk and undertaking risk, then you really need to encourage the managing of risks, and your learners need to be exposed to a certain level of risk so that they can undertake that management. So if your health and safety policy discourages all risk taking and stops exposing any risky play or risky activities to your learners, how can you teach them how to risk assess? And unfortunately, there is a disparity. A lot of health and safety policies just sent by the local authority. They're not adapted to schools individually, and they're sometimes quite old-fashioned. They're like 10 years old, and sometimes about 10 years ago there was a really big push for all risk to be removed from any play or any school grounds. And nowadays that's not actually suitable, because we need to expose them to a safe level of risk, if that's such a term, but a level that they have the exposure to, so they know how to actually address risk, manage it, and hopefully then learn those skills. So again, thinking about what's in your health and safety policy, if it says that they aren't allowed to climb trees, then think about why. Why have we got these health and safety rules in place? Is it from a bygone age when health and safety was all about stopping them being exposed to any kind of risk, which is not the way it is now? Also consider, are there opportunities to increase risk? So is there things that we can add that aren't in the health and safety policy? So we're showing that we're trying to maintain this level of risk management by the learners. So you could also put in the health and safety policy that you are literally, you are letting them undertake risky play or risky activities so that they manage their own risk. In your inclusion policy or your accessibility policy, making outdoor learning a part of your curriculum offer means that it's got to be open to all. So you need to make sure you put in place ways to allow learners to access the outdoors. And that might be to do with the weather. So you might be providing wet weather clothes. It might be that you're ensuring there's access for all abilities. So you may have to put in ramps or some kind of paving, or look at your school grounds in terms of its accessibility and may have to add in some development there. It's also really important, if it's part of your ethos and part of your school curriculum offer, then it is mandatory. So making outdoor learning mandatory, not something that learners can opt out of. So it's not that you can have, children being allowed to not go on out to do outdoor learning or forest school or go on trips for no particular reason. So you're trying your best to try and include them, which you would for every activity within school. Alongside that, it's really important to make sure that outdoor learning is not then removed as a punishment for bad behavior. Again, if there was an aspect such as sport or PE, you wouldn't stop a child having a PE lesson because they'd been naughty. So same should be for outdoor learning. It should be something that's mandatory, that's part of the curriculum offer, so they can't opt out from it. Also, a lot of the excuses, especially with parents saying, oh, can they not go outside today? They've got a cold. Usually the reasons are actually something that they probably benefit from going outside from anyway. Thinking about going beyond your school grounds into your local learning area or onto school trips or residentials as also part of this outdoor learning, you need to consider the inclusivity in terms of providing maybe financial assistance. I know for day trips, then you just ask for voluntary donations. You can't ask them to pay, so if they can't. But if you've got a lot of in a deprived area and you've got a lot which are not going to afford any trips, then looking for funding opportunities or providing fundraising activities so that everybody has the chance. So again, making sure that it is available to all, regardless of how much money they've got. Residentials, you can ask for funding for residentials, they have to pay for that. But again, if you could provide some kind of grant funding for ones who couldn't afford it, so everybody has that opportunity. Safeguarding policy, again, something that comes in through the local authority really. But again, if you want to try and add to it, so keep what it's got from the local authority, but add to it in terms of outdoor learning, consider the trips that you're undertaking. Chances are this is one of the times when you're bringing in parents and other members of the public who aren't necessarily DBS and also aren't necessarily trained or anything. So thinking about if you're asking parents to attend for activities, be it in your school grounds, local learning area, or on trips, if you can provide a code of conduct letter, obviously a letter saying thank you, but a letter telling them what is acceptable behaviour on a trip. So we don't want anyone to be smoking. Also the rules and responsibilities, what we expect them to be doing. Are they in charge of a small group? And it also encourages them to ask questions, and you're really making them feel part of that trip. It's not just that they're there because they're little boys there and they wanted an extra bod. You are actually saying, right, these are your roles and responsibilities. Thank you so much for coming. We expect you to look after these 5 children. I'm going to tell you what happens in the day. And sometimes I've seen in some schools, actually, they have a code of conduct and they expect the parents to actually sign that before they bring them along. Now, some schools might be going, well, we're lucky if we get some parents, but thinking about safeguarding point of view, if you've actually identified what is acceptable behaviour, then at least you are covering yourself by saying, well, we did tell them that they shouldn't be doing this. Whereas if one of the parents was saying, well, I didn't know that wasn't appropriate, then yeah, it's not necessarily the best way. And thinking about when you've got parents coming to the school, they're always looking at your safeguarding policy before they sign in. So if you're going on a trip, then wouldn't that be exactly the same case as well, with the additional responsibilities of what they're doing on that trip? When outdoor learning is part of what you do in school, then it really makes life easier if you can make outdoor learning, outdoor clothes, part of the uniform requirement for all your learners. So if you really want to make sure you can go outside any weather without having to give out letters, so you can go outside at the drop of a hat, if you add waterproofs and wellies as part of the uniform and ask them to leave them in school, and then if it's wet, they obviously have to take them home and dry them, but bring them in the next day, then you know you can always go out and everybody's got that. You do obviously need to take into account the inclusion policy. So if they can't provide their own, then have a bank that you can provide so you can still include them. But you're trying to put this, again, this embeddedness of the outdoor learning. If the new nursery come in and they get this pack of everything they expect you to do, and part of that is bring in wellies and bring in waterproofs, then you're setting them up to realize that this is part of what we do. Now, in sector leading schools that I've seen, you need outdoor learning in all your policies. So thinking about ways in which you can do it in other policies that I haven't mentioned here. So it could be that you've got a section on all your policies that just says outdoor learning. This is what we do in regards to this policy. And sometimes the best ones are that you have this thread running through all the policies, and it's almost sprinkled in everywhere. So mentioned at lots of different places. Now, I should say that all the examples that I've seen from having outdoor learning embedded into all the policies are all from English schools, because there haven't been that many Welsh schools going through the learning outside the classroom badge. So with reference to your policies, thinking about the ways in which you have adapted them recently for including all aspects of the curriculum for Wales, then bringing the outdoor learning along with that should obviously provide you with kind of like a framework. And of course, because we're all on this journey for curriculum the curriculum for Wales, your approach is going to be your approach. So nobody can actually give you necessarily a perfect policy, because your school works in a different way to another school. So it's important that you're updating your policies so they link into the way you're approaching the new curriculum for Wales. So why not bring in outdoor learning into that policy as you're doing it at the same time? Now, what is important, of course, is that whatever outdoor learning you're doing and whatever goes into these policies in terms of outdoor learning is impactful. So you're not just going, oh, let's write outdoor learning into this policy, just cut and paste it from the school development plan and put that into it. Just so that I've ticked a box, there you go, it's in the policy, I can see it. So start with your vision and then draw that into the relevant policies, as you have with all aspects of the new curriculum, as and when you renew them. So every time you look at them and then you send them to the governors to be ratified, think about, right, how does outdoor learning go into this? Now, in one school that I actually assessed, they'd actually included outdoor learning in their appointments policy. So in their appointments policy, they were very big on explaining how much they emphasized and prioritized outdoor learning. Therefore, in the job spec, they actually said that they needed to have outdoor learning experience. And in fact, they conducted their interviews outside with their learners. And they also insisted that the observed lesson that they observed for their interview process was an outdoor learning lesson. So that's just an example of a way in which you could make outdoor learning really at the heart of your policies and procedures in a really meaningful way. To make outdoor learning at the heart of your school, you really need to communicate this to all your stakeholders. So not just to show that you are following your SDP, so you're ticking the box again, or that this is your vision, so you want to prove that it is, but really so that everybody who has a stake in your school is engaged in your use of the outdoors and buys into this ethos. Now, this will come back in dividends, because if you're trying to get them to bring in waterproofs and every time you talk to them, it's all about outdoor learning, then they'll realize, oh, I really do need to get some waterproofs, because they keep going out and they keep going on about this. Now, to reach your parents is probably the easiest way to communicate with stakeholders. And it's probably what all your schools do with outdoor learning already. So outdoor learning being tweeted in pictures is probably the best way that you get in contact with your parents. And that also is probably what's going on within your school already. However, beyond your parents, you've got other stakeholders, and they're also going to be looking at those tweets as well. So sometimes having a hashtag for outdoor learning for your school is a great way that then you can search and look for things, and you're showing your commitment because you've got this hashtag. You also can use whatever other way, because some schools, because of child protection, they don't use Twitter. So it could be that you're putting it on Seesaw or Dojos. But again, anywhere you communicate with your parents, putting photos of outdoor learning is a very nice, easy way to communicate that. But to reach your wider stakeholders, thinking about local businesses, any visitors, the great way to do that is to think of it, just remove yourself from the environment for a minute and basically look at your school shop front, which tends to be your website. So look at your website. Are there any pictures of outdoor learning on that? Does there any mention in your website about outdoor learning in things like the welcome from the head teacher? Do you have a calendar on your website, and is it up to date? And does it show the trips that you're doing? So if you had on there that you were going to walk to the post office, you obviously don't have to necessarily get permission forms because you've hopefully got a letter where they've signed that they can go to your local learning area. But if it's on that calendar, then parents who look at it can see, oh gosh, we go on a lot of trips, we're doing a lot of things outdoors, and they can then communicate that information so they know that it's meaningful and what you're doing is really improving their experience in terms of their curriculum. But if you've got a calendar that looks really sparse and you're thinking, wait a minute, either somebody's not filling this in or we're not actually making the best use of our local area and putting it and communicating it to our parents and anybody else who's looking on this, we need to maybe keep that up to date. You also might have a prospectus for your school. And again, are there any photos of outdoor learning taking place in that? And if you've got any commitment there, and if there's mentions of expectations, so how much outdoor learning you're expecting to do. And then it also keeps you to account, because if somebody's bought into coming to your school, because in your prospectus, you say that we go out every week and we do this trip and we go there. And when they come to the school, they don't do that, then they're actually keeping you to account to the commitment that you've actually placed in your for your shop front. In terms of communication with your staff about the outdoor learning, you could leave this up to the outdoor learning coordinator, but really if it's added to any agendas that you have for staff meetings, then you know that it's been given priority. You will be talking about it and discussing it by all the staff. It also, especially if you've got whole staff meetings that you're having or ad sessions, it allows staff to keep up to date on any changes in the school grounds. So it could be certain places are out of bounds, certain things have been found. It also raises awareness of what other teachers are doing in terms of outdoor learning. So if you're talking about it and someone says, oh, I'm planning to work in the pond next week, somebody can say, oh, right, I was thinking of using the pond, right, I'll move to the afternoon session. So almost better than just having an online timetabling for your outdoor area, having that discussion, even if it's not, you know, it's kind of intermittent or opportunistic conversations, having that as a set thing within a ad session or within a staff meeting means that you're covering bases like that. You can also do it as almost like an evaluative thing and see, right, well, are we lacking any resources? Does anyone know where the tape measures are or where the clipboard's gone? So you can keep track of things like that, any problems, any resources you need to buy, and also any staff training requirements. So if people keep asking, does anyone know what this plant is? Or does anyone know about the animals down there? If that keeps being an issue, then you might think, okay, maybe we'll get some experts in to do survey, or maybe we'll get some extra training done because there's obviously an issue here. Now, within the communication with your governing body, most of that occurs through your governing body meetings and through your head teacher's report to governors. But also it's a great opportunity to provide governors time to actually come to your school, observe the grounds and do learning walks outside. Also, of course, they're going to be talking to learners and doing book looks. But if there may be sometimes when you ask the governors to come and prioritize outdoor learning in their talking to learners. So they're focusing in on that aspect. And a great way of doing that is to add an additional role to your governors and appoint an outdoor learning governor. So this governor will be responsible for observing where outdoor learning is taking place across the school, and also hearing from learners about their experience of outdoor learning, what they like, and how it's impacting on them. And it also provides you with a voice for allocating funds. So if you get somebody talking about it in the governor's meeting, especially if it's on your SDP, then this is when you can think about allocating fund and justifying any funding that you've used. It also involves stakeholders, because of course your governing body is way beyond your staff. You've got stakeholders from all over the community. And it just shows that, again, you're prioritizing this outdoor learning. And if it's linked to your SDP, again, it all makes sense then. Now, I've mentioned the outdoor learning coordinator and the role of it. Again, there's much more on this on the whole school approach session that I covered, but I'll just briefly go through that role. But in a nutshell, if you really want to follow through with outdoor learning, you need somebody overseeing it. Think about all aspects that you've got a coordinator in your school, you know, numeracy, literacy, health and well-being. Those people oversee across the board, and you really can't do that without having somebody as a designated coordinator. So they are going to be responsible for developing and overseeing outdoor learning throughout the school. So across year groups, across AOLEs, and they're really the link to go to find out about that. They're going to be overseeing all types of outdoor learning, whether that's on-site, off-site, residentials, school trips, expeditions, and they're not limited to one aspect of that. So they get that whole view. They're also going to coordinate the development and the impact. So if they're seeing that everyone's doing a mini beast hunt and there doesn't seem to be any progression going on, they could say, right, okay, we need to develop some resources to help the Key Stage 2 teachers provide more challenging opportunities in the school grounds, because they're obviously not sure what they're doing because they're doing the same thing. And we need to make sure that there is impact and that's being measured. Now, this is all about assessment. And again, there's lots more on the assessment session, but I'll talk about that a bit later, talking about how to develop the impact. They also may be responsible for undertaking risk management coordination. So that's not writing all the risk assessments necessarily, but that's coordinating it so people know where risk assessments are, but also making sure they're fit for purpose. They're also going to support the staff to embed outdoor learning. So thinking about adding some kind of review or audit of skills and experience from the staff so that they know where they need to add in some support. They're also going to encourage creativity. So again, they may be providing ideas of how to use the outdoors to teach certain aspects of the curriculum, but they also will be encouraging them to make life easier for them. So maybe providing them with a bit of scaffold if they're new teachers to outdoor learning. They might be that they're providing resources and guidance material. It might be a section on Hub or on your T drive, something where they have a bank of materials that can help to support your staff in doing outdoor learning. They probably will be responsible for writing the outdoor learning policy and also putting outdoor learning into the other policies. They will be providing opportunities to mentor new staff or staff who are unfamiliar with outdoor learning. So helping them, team teaching is a great way of doing that. So if your outdoor learning coordinator obviously has to be pretty good at outdoor learning, or at least appreciate the opportunities there. Then if they work together with other staff, they can then see how it's done and then work together. They can also provide them staff induction, expectations for outdoor learning, guided walk around the grounds, a description of what we use certain areas for, the expectations of what's it called, muster points, where they can go, where they can't go, and the routines that take place. They also need to make sure there's ongoing CPD for the staff. So again, monitoring where there may be issues, lack of knowledge, lack of skills, and then providing that using external providers, or it could be peer-to-peer CPD. And then, of course, monitoring and reviewing the outdoor learning, either by observing lessons, looking in their books, talking to learners, and just monitoring what's going on to see if they need, if they're doing what they should be doing, they're meeting their learning objectives, and also whether there's anything we could improve. So to establish if outdoor learning is at the heart of your school, then you really need to ask yourself, how does outdoor learning support your setting's development? Now, we're not talking about grounds development now, we're talking about your school and how it pushes your school forward. And obviously the driver for that is it in your school development plan or your school improvement plan as a target or a priority? And if it is, then you're showing that the learning outdoors can impact numerous areas of teaching and learning, and it probably, hopefully, should impact the daily life in your setting. Because if you look at your SDP and it isn't clear by just looking at your school through a day, what is your priorities, then probably you're not prioritizing it enough. So if you can see that in looking at your normal school week, and that's the best way to do it. So look at a normal school week and see if you've got regular day-to-day practices going on, making sure it's in like your working documents, as I said, your policies, and whether it's influential to your teaching and learning. Is it actually fully embedded, or is it a bit of an add-on? So in order to do that, you need to make sure that there are numerous areas of teachers and learning going on outdoors. So it's not all maths or all science. You should also make sure that it is embedded in the planning. So your daily routines, you might, for example, have things that happen outside every single day. Now, that could be a very small thing, it doesn't matter how much, but it is embedded and happening regularly. Some schools, for example, have chickens. Now, that's quite a big commitment, but it does mean that a class or somebody has to go out and feed the chickens and look after them every day. They are undertaking some outdoor activities. One thing that most schools are doing regularly with outdoor learning is the daily mile. So every day your learners are going outside and doing an outdoor activity, which is walking or running a mile. But think also about break time routines. I know it's not outdoor learning, but that play exposure to outdoors, thinking about, do you have wet play? Wet play is the worst thing for children, and every teacher who's been in school and it's been wet play knows that the children are climbing the walls. So if you're really going to have outdoor learning in all weathers, so your learners have always got waterproofs there, then do you actually need to ever have wet play, or do they just get their waterproofs on and get on with playing outside? It's a lot easier to play in bad weather than to try and do a very focused, activity outside when the rain can really disturb your concentration. So thinking about putting that into policies as well. Also try and integrate regular things such as data collection. So it might be that every morning when you've got your helper Heather filling in the register, the fire register, putting up what the weather's like, they also go outside and they collect a temperature reading and a rain gauge reading and a wind reading, and they put that into a data set, which is obviously a great secondary resource that you'll have, but also it means you're going outside to do some outdoor learning. It's part of what you do every day. It could be that you do reading outside regularly, guided reading. If the weather's nice, or if you've got an outdoor classroom, why not have one group do guided reading outside? Or if you've got catch up and you've got TAs taking groups out, again, what about bringing them outside as well? So think about the outside as a location for things you do regularly. Slot Drillio. Can you take your Welsh outside? Or anything that you're doing on a regular basis, can you use that as an outdoor location? And will it be, another way of showing that you use the outdoors as a really good place to have every location covered for every aspect of your curriculum? Now, outdoor learning should be a regular feature in any discussions that you have on your curriculum design. Of course, curriculum design is happening all the time at the moment. It's the thing that you're probably talking about all the time. So if you've got that going on as any development meetings or any leadership meetings, realistically, outdoor learning should be happening within those discussions as well. So when you're talking about your approach to the new curriculum, are you mentioning that you're using the outdoors as a key component to things like choosing the theme? So a lot of schools now are coming up with their themes for the next couple of years, and this will mean that those are going to be stuck. Those would be things that are going to be used to drive forward your curriculum. Can you try and use the outdoors to provide you with opportunities to choose themes which are really useful in terms of providing opportunities for outdoor learning? So I know the themes that people are having are so broad now, they're much more broad than they ever were, but can you think, right, what outdoor learning can we do with this theme? Are we making it difficult for ourselves to actually undertake outdoor learning? And then design your programs of activities to include that as well. So thinking about if you've got a launch, so you're launching a project, you're launching your theme, can you use the outdoors within that? You're providing celebration opportunities at the end, or an enterprise. Can we make sure the outdoors is involved in that? So all of that is all around the new curriculum and the curriculum development. Planning. Now, we've gone through planning. We've done a whole one on planning. So if you want more information about planning, then look at the session on planning with the outdoors. But across the school planning, if you want outdoor learning integral into that and into your for-purpose curriculum, then you need to start thinking about it when you're choosing your topics. So when you choose your topics, are they suitable for outdoor learning? Are you using your local area? So we've got that Cynefin, of course, and if your Cynefin is being built on through your themes or your topics, then you know that you're going to actually visit that local area to actually answer those questions that you'll do. Once you've got your long-term planning, think about your topic launches. How do you make sure that your topics are inspiring? And a great way of doing that is to go outside, of course, use your local learning area, use your school grounds, but also bring in people from the outside to share their expertise. And usually that will lead to some really good epic planning and some really good question generation. So some people are launching topics and getting their students involved in pupil voice in the epic planning without kind of giving them a taster of it. And it's very difficult to try and get students to tell you what they want to learn about a topic if you just fire at them and saying, right, we're doing up and away. What do you want to learn? It's going in just cold like that. It's really difficult. So a topic launch is a great opportunity to just test the water, show them a few things, and getting experts in to give them a little talk to expose them to more than your school can provide, or going outside and doing the outdoor space and using that is a great way to get them to come up with really good plans. So outdoor learning can only be part of things like your epic planning if you provide them with opportunities to think about the outdoors as a location. And the best way to do that is when you're doing your epic planning, do it outside. So take your planning outside, and then you can get inspiration for your ongoing learning from the outdoors. I was doing a planning session the other day with a group, and we did it all outside. And after they'd done their pupil voice and they'd filled in all their forms, they were all over the place. They were, looking at everything, which they got inspiration from what was around them. But we were then turning that into outdoor learning activities. And even if it hadn't been outdoor learning activities, the activities that we would have come up with based on their ideas probably would have been outdoors, because that's where we were. So when we got stuck, we were looking around like this going, and then suddenly a tree or something would inspire us to come up with actual activity. So being outdoors is just a simple way of making sure you're thinking about the outdoors all the time. Moving on to medium-term planning. So embedding outdoor learning into your medium-term planning based on your pupil voice. Again, if you're filling this in or using post-it notes or some kind of planning sheet, make sure there is outdoor learning on them to remind you to include this outdoor learning as a meaningful and fully integrated part of the teaching. And what I like to do is to make sure just to keep reminding them, oh, what trip should we go on? What trip would be great for this topic? So they almost add a list of trips that they'd like to do. And they might, again, need some help because they may not know about what trips are available nearby. So you might want some photos of old trips or places that you could go to, or even pamphlets from local local locations. So it could be that you've got a dinosaur park that they don't know about, so bring in a leaflet from that. It could be farms, it could be zoos, it could be nature reserves. So if you bring some pamphlets, they could look through them and go, oh yeah, we could be looking at that when we go to that topic. And again, they're thinking that again, the learning area is not just the classroom, it's much beyond that. And you've got these opportunities on off-site visits as well. So you're trying to provide the whole range of outdoor learning experiences. And of course, when you're doing this in your planning, it's going to be across all of your AOLEs and across all subject areas and across all year groups, because they're going to be all doing it together, all following this same planning sheet. Make sure also that you provide opportunities across the range of different sectors of the outdoors. So I'm talking about things like heritage, so castles and built environments, old places basically. You've also got the new built environment, so housing, different buildings, transport, all the built environment you've got near you. And then of course the natural environment, so habitats as well. And those are naturally going to provide you with opportunities across all the AOLEs, and make sure that it's cross-curricular as well, and that you're trying to cover the 4 purposes and you're covering the integral skills. So that's what's leading the way, these 4 purposes and the integral skills, but seeing how you can build them in to your planning. So in summary, what you really need to do is to ask yourself, do you undertake outdoor learning to achieve the whole of the curriculum? Or is it that you're trying to actually just teach maths outdoors or science outdoors? Or is it actually covering everything? Is everything being led by outdoor learning or leading into outdoor learning? And the way to do that when you're doing your your short-term planning is to ask yourself, where's the best place to teach this? Is it in the classroom? Is it outdoors? Is it on a trip? Is it on a residential? And then if you're saying that every time you think of an activity, then you're probably making the best use of your outdoor space. When you're undertaking outdoor learning, it needs to be meaningful as well as fully integrated into your planning. That really is the key. Now, this includes designing your outdoor learnings to meet your specific learning outcomes. So if you haven't got learning outcomes, you're not sure what you're doing out there, then it's very hard to make sure that you're actually moving the learners on, but you're also covering curriculum content. And if you're in secondary school or in Key Stage 3 or 2, then you don't have the time to just go out because it's great to go out, even for health and well-being necessarily. So you need a specific learning outcome, and that could be an academic one, that you've got to cover certain skills or certain curriculum content. It could also be personal and social development skills that you're achieving as well. But you do need to know what those learning outcomes are. But also with outdoor learning, you need to be flexible. It could be that your learning outcomes have changed when you go outside because something makes your students go in a different direction. And that's fine as well, as long as you are aware that you have achieved a learning outcome. It may not have been what exactly you planned, but it was still a productive use of the time outdoors that you actually achieved a learning objective. Now, the planning needs to use, of course, your outdoor learning to link the AOLEs and the themes within the AOLEs to make sure that you're actually bringing the learning to life. Being outdoors is all about this experiential experience, and it provides you with great opportunities for problem solving, as well as making things make much more sense because it's real life. So in order to do that, you really can't teach outdoor learning in isolation. The worst thing you can do is try to embed outdoor learning, but then have it taught by a peripatetic teacher, or say a TA. So if you're not planning it in and you're just saying, oh yeah, so-and-so does the outdoor learning, they just get on with it, then you're not fully embedding it into your school, and they may not be clear of the expectations. And also it might be that they only expect to do outdoor learning in that. So it should be that all staff are doing it with all learners, and there are clear expectations, therefore, of the mindset and the behavior when you're learning outdoors, which is exactly the same mindset and behavior that you expect inside. Consideration of when and where to undertake outdoor learning within the year in your timetable needs to take into account things like your seasons, so nature's cycle. So there's not much point doing all about life cycles in the winter because there's not a lot going on. You also need to make sure you're bringing into account the students' development and, of course, the Cynefin in their learning. So that's their local learning area, their sense of belonging. And really, you learners should have an opportunity to visit a range of outdoor sectors. So you aren't repeating going to exactly the same place every year group. So thinking about progression in where you're going, but also variety. So different habitats when you're looking at the natural environment. So different heritage locations, different parts of the built environment. And it should be undertaking regular use of your school grounds as well as the local learning area. You should have regular off-site visits, going further afield, and also we need to integrate residentials within that as well. So, and on top of that, you're encouraging in visitors. Maybe they're coming to give you talks, such as in launch days or sharing expertise, or you're having events on site when you're inviting people in so you can celebrate what you've got. And it might be that you've got some off-site ones, especially over COVID, that might be virtual experiences or interactive ones. Again, it's still bringing that a greater variety of outdoor learning experiences. So I'm just going to go through an example of how outdoor learning can be embedded in every aspect of the school year or the school term, so that you're making the best use of it. So starting at the beginning, you're using your outdoor learning to inspire your topics. So you're having a launch day, and then you're doing that outdoors, or maybe you go on a school trip. You have experts in sharing their expertise outside. And based on that, you then come up with planning for ideas for the topic. When you do that, you're going outside as well. And then outdoor learning is then used to teach the topic. So you're thinking about what aspects of that plan that we've come up with, that EPIC planning, can I teach outside? So life cycles, yeah, we can go to the pond, we can see the different animals, we can watch their life cycle. Then maybe mid-topic, you might be doing some outdoor learning used to test some understanding of a concept that you might have done. So you might have done a maths concept inside, and then you want to test their understanding in a different environment, in a real life environment. So you might go outside to do that. And at the end of a topic, you might use outdoor learning to exemplify concepts that you've been taught. So you might have been doing all about rivers, and then you undertake a geographical inquiry into the landforms along a river system at the end of the topic to show what you've been taught, to see if those concepts are actually correct. And then finally, you are challenging your learners to test those concepts that you've done and that you've taught them inside by coming outside and undertaking maybe a scientific inquiry or a geographical inquiry. So looking at, so say we've done all about plants and what they need to grow. We'll then go outside and find the best conditions and see whether it's got the highest variety of plants. So we're testing whether what we would learn inside is actually true in the real world. And if you do this, if you use the outdoors in this progressive way through the term, then it really ensures that you have this gradual, continuous progression in outdoor learning across the year and also across the school. Now, there's more details again on undertaking progressive outdoor learning in the progression session that I included when we did last time. I think that's the last session. And also there's my outdoor learning progression framework, which I'm going to actually put in a couple of slides in the next slide. But if you want to, again, make sure that you are fully embedding it, the outdoor learning must include effective preparation and follow-up work, which is embedded into all the outdoor learning experiences you do. So it's not standalone. Standalone does not make sector leading. So if you've got a field trip or residential, it should be fully linked into the work that you're undertaking in school. So if it's covering progression, it could be, especially residential, it could be that it's personal skills, but it could be curriculum content, or it could be integral skills. But it also allows for cross-curricular links to be integrated. And to make the best use of outdoor learning experiences, you need to make the most use of it to cover all learning opportunities. So for example, it might be that your learners are planning the route that you're undertaking to do the fieldwork before they go. It may be that they're planning the activities on a residential, or they're creating the risk assessment before you go on an outdoor learning activity. It could be that you practice the data collection methods in your school grounds before you go on a field trip. It could be that they create an ID guide and then they test it out in their local park. It could be that they're writing a questionnaire that they then ask in a geographical survey when they go to a local learning area, maybe in the shopping centre. So you are doing something to prepare them for going on the outdoor learning experience, and it means they know why they're going. Then when you come back post outdoor learning visit or residential or trip, the follow-up work again also needs to be meaningful. And that doesn't mean that you have to do a recount. So many schools come out with me and I say, oh, what are you going to do afterwards? They go, oh, we're going to do a recount. And I must admit, I can't think of anything more boring than going on a trip and then thinking, I'm going to have to go and write about this when I get back. There might be a place for a recount, but if you do that every time you do an outdoor learning activity or every time you do a trip, then it might kind of take the joy out of it after a while. But also you are actually missing a trick there, because you could progress in skills, because every time you go on an outdoor trip or an outdoor learning experience, they're going to be progressing your learners along. So if they're just doing a recount, they're not really progressing. So thinking about the skills that you can do by providing a variety of tasks undertaken post-visit and making sure you're building on the skills and the knowledge they gained from that outdoor learning experience. So for example, if you've collected data while you were outside, they can present the data. They could then also, if you've done a collected data on a field trip, you could collect some comparable data in the school field. If you've undertaken map reading skills while you've been on a trip, then they can come back and use that to maybe undertake an orienteering course in your school grounds. It could be that from a residential, they've been working on team building and independence, but it really needs a bit more work. So come back and use that to allow the learners to take charge of proving that they've gained some good independence or team working skills by leading a project, an enterprise project. And again, building on the experience they've got. You might say, right, we've all been on a residential, so you've all been used to being self-sufficient, looking after your stuff, getting the right kit, getting up in time. You're now going to plan maybe a campsite for your school grounds, and you have to write suggested kit lists, you have to create risk assessments, you have to plan some activities for your families to come and stay the night. So they're then planning another outdoor learning opportunity coming from it after they've actually been exposed to it when you've planned it. Now, outdoor learning really should involve the learner's input. So at the very least, there should be some kind of pupil voice as an evaluation of the outdoor learning. So that's at the very minimum, you should come back and ask them things like, what did you learn? You know, did you enjoy it? That kind of thing. And in the evolve form, there is part of that you need to fill in. But realistically, there's more that you can get out of that. You could highlight any unexpected learning outcomes, and that helps you to identify maybe next time you do it in your future planning, you could make some more out of that. You could also build on that and ask learners for some suggestions for more outdoor learning experiences. So again, this could be part of your EPIC planning, and it could be part of the evaluation of your outdoor learning activities. With the new curriculum, I think it's really important to take some time at the end of each topic and go, right, well, what went well? What did we learn? How could we have made it better? Because especially if you've got a 2-year cycle and you will be doing this theme again, how can you actually make it better and more inclusive and have more outdoor learning in it? You're also making sure you've got progression, and the pinnacle of that would be allowing your pupils to actually plan their own outdoor learning activities themselves. So you're really teaching them how to be effective outdoor learners. You've also got assessment. So outdoor learning is going to be assessed through your assessment for learning, but also it can be used as a tool to assess understanding of taught concepts. So you can assess the outdoor learning, but you can also use outdoor learning as an assessment tool. And again, if you want more information on that, there's an assessment session that you can look at. But realistically, you could take everything you do inside and you use that as an assessment tool, just using it and outside. Right, so this is my outdoor learning progression framework. And if you want to ensure that there is progression in outdoor learning, it's a great way to become sector leading in the outdoors is to make sure that your outdoor learning is embedded across all your progression steps, and you've actually mapped it into the curriculum of the school like the other AOLEs have. So all your progression steps in all 6 AOLEs are going to be mapped through progression. So you know that you're not taking the same activity in nursery and in year 6. If you do the same mapping with your outdoor learning activities, then you'll know that you've got progression. But what you need to do is make sure that they're developing skills, engaging, and then using those skills outdoors, and then using them to test concepts and exemplify concepts that they've learned inside. When you're making the best use of the outdoor learning opportunities, you need to consider the locations you use outdoor learning for, and are you actually making the best use of the opportunities around you? So think about your school grounds. How do you use it to support your outdoor learning? Have you considered zoning your outdoor learning space into, say, your AOLEs? So you could have outdoor learning areas for the different learning zones. Lots of people do this in foundation phase, but maybe for the Key Stage 2, is there locations in your school grounds that lend themselves to more different AOLEs? Thinking about what features within your school grounds are used for outdoor learning and how are they being used, and sharing this amongst your staff. And also, does it vary across the year groups? Do you have different use of school grounds in different year groups, or are you doing similar things? And also the curriculum, the subjects, so the AOLEs, is the range of AOLEs being taught outside? And are you trying to think about personal development as well? Any activities taking place in your school grounds that helps with that? Now, in order to get your head around all of this, it's really useful to create like a spreadsheet of all the possible outdoor learning. I'd start with doing, say, trips. So a spreadsheet of all possible trip destinations, and then think about your local learning area and then further afield, and then identify the possible learning objectives which could be achieved at each of these. Now, you could do this as a staff, so everybody inputs in where they've been and what they did. And then you can identify then what potential learning opportunities there are locally. So when you're planning your next topic, you can use that and go, oh, right, okay, there, that learning objective will fit in, we can go there. You also need to ensure that you've got a breadth and progression in your outdoor learning. So you're doing more and more detailed and more difficult opportunities outside. Now, this is probably the role of the outdoor learning coordinator, but again, undertaking a staff audit to see what takes place and where will give you a good overview of outdoor learning across the whole school. So finding out what the foundation phase are doing compared to year 6 and seeing where that progression is going. Looking at your resources, thinking how you resource your outdoor learning and whether providing a bank of activity ideas or prompts, so some example lesson plans or a Padlet or some documents on Hub, or even just links to websites to help support your staff. Also think about the resources you've got. If you undertake a resource audit for outdoor learning, then you can make sure that the required equipment that you need for outdoor learning is actually in the right place. So it's got outdoor learning boxes, places, and you've got sheds supporting certain AOLEs. We need to obviously talk to the teachers about this and the learners and identify what resources would be useful, and make sure then that you share this information around the staff. And then consider, if you've got outdoor learning boxes, say, you know, do your staff know where they are? Are they external and they're going to be surviving the weather? And are they accessible for all classes? Now, other resources which may be identified might be things that are restricting your outdoor learning. So outdoor clothing is one. So as a school, if you haven't got it as wet weather clothing in your uniform policy, consider adding that. Or if you can, invest in class sets of waterproofs and wellies. Fundraising might be required to that, but it also could be that you send letters out asking parents to donate old waterproofs and wellies. And if you are fundraising, and if you require that for any outdoor learning equipment or resources, if outdoor learning is prominent in your school ethos and your STB, then it's really clear to your stakeholders why you need to raise that money, and hopefully means you're more likely to get it. Also consider asking donations from local businesses as well. It could be that they want to provide something and then you put a plaque up but a bit like when you get sponsorship for your football kit, think about that maybe for your waterproofs as well. But also don't forget you need to store it and you need to manage and dry it, because we need to have, if you want outdoor learning into this daily schedule, regardless of the weather, then at the heart of your school, it needs to be easy and manageable for the staff and part of your daily routine. So you need to establish routines at September, best place. So the expectations for outdoor learning, your learners always have waterproofs and wellies in class because it's part of your school uniform. You then get them to put their stuff away. They put it on drying racks. It's all part of that training of your students. And therefore, you know that when you do outdoor learning, you're not going to spend hours trying to sort out waterproofs afterwards. It's all part of the system. And the parents know that, the learners know that. So you've got that fully embedded. Think about your school grounds and do they provide enough opportunities for outdoor learning? Because if they don't, it could be that you may have to do some grounds development for you in order for you to undertake more learning. And again, more on that in the grounds development session that I've done. But if you look at your school grounds and it's just not possible for you to undertake outdoor learning, either there's not enough space or you don't have enough resources, then you might want to consider looking further afield. So some schools have been gifted or lent land close to the school by churches, parks. One of them I went to was given it by a residential centre. They had a garden they weren't using. It could be that you've got a park which is just behind your school and you're almost adopting that as an outdoor classroom for your school. Could be that you've got a secondary school nearby where you can use their area of their land. You can access that maybe on a timetable basis. Look at Google Earth at your local learning area. Or if you can speak to local residents or anybody in your staff who's local and try and identify potential sites which are close to your school where you could realistically undertake regular outdoor learning without too much hassle. You don't want to be 20-minute walk there. But if you are really poorly, if you've got really poor school grounds, then if you really want to embed it, that's the way you need to go. But when you're considering if you are going to do any grounds development, then don't forget to get any external advice and support. So think about who can provide you it for free, first of all. So your local authority advisors, cluster schools, parents with expertise. It's a great, if you can get almost a spreadsheet of what parents you have and what skills they have, then you know who to call on. And there are also organizations that can provide you with either resources or advice or training. Council for Learning Outside the Classroom, of course, have got experts. Learning Through Landscape, they do about school grounds development and using your school ground. Wildlife groups that can come in and do surveys and help you build up habitats in your school grounds. You've also got culture and religious groups that may come and have either access to funding or provide you with expertise. So again, consider undertaking a survey of all your stakeholders, including your parents and your governors, to see if there's any expertise that you didn't know about that you can tap into. And of course, local businesses are a great source of financial support. They might even be able to provide workforce or resources if you're doing school grounds development. And it doesn't hurt to ask. So when you're doing things like persuasive writing, consider adding letter writing as something that your pupils do to ask for money towards school grounds development. For local businesses are offering them the opportunity to sponsor it. And then of course, that gives them great coverage. And then you can provide them with opportunities to come to the school grounds. And that's another opportunity to cover parts of the integral skills for the curriculum for Wales in terms of the career aspects. So if you've got people who work coming into your school grounds and working with the students, you've got direct contact between employers and your students, especially if you're doing secondary school, but also they can give them talks, they can give them tours, they can provide lesson ideas or something that they can do in terms of skills. Again, for secondary school, we can even have opportunities for work experience when they've linked up. Upskilling your staff by building confidence to use your school grounds can really help you to empower them to use outdoor learning in the best way that they can. Now, you can do this through your outdoor learning coordinator, or it could be that you're doing peer-to-peer or across cluster groups, or you can bring in experts to provide CPD. Just make sure if you're bringing in training or buying in training that it's providing what you need for your staff. So ask your staff first what they need in terms of training in outdoor learning. Identify bespoke training that you can get in that aspect and make sure that the CPD or the training is purposeful. And then after that, it's really important to follow up any training by setting targets which are linked to outdoor learning, especially if it's in the SDP, or linked to their professional development targets, and sharing practices within the school and experience. So often I do training and everyone at the end of it is really inspired and it kind of trails off. You do need to have follow-ups to kind of keep the momentum going and also provide a system of accountability so that they use that training. So you can say that the money was well spent, but also that it's having an impact further than just the training day. Think about your outdoor learning. Is there monitoring of outdoor learning opportunities across the school? And are they included when you're undertaking your overviews of your curriculum content? So if you're undertaking trips and residentials, is there progression across the school? So skills can be built on from one year to the next. Unfortunately, especially for residentials, most of that happens in year 6. But try and integrate some degree of residential experience throughout the years, and then you've got those skills that you're building up through the years. Again, went through much more on this when we looked at progression in the last session. But think about, I think it's on the next slide. Yes, you can audit your outdoor learning. There we go. So this resource here, if you look at this, if you filled this in for your school, then you could get this overview of what's happening in the school grounds, what's routine, what people are doing all the time. And then when you get to the residential or adventurous activities, if there's nothing on there until you get to year 6, then you might think, okay, right, we haven't got progression in our residentials. Let's try and include some in year 3 and 4. Let's try and get some in year 5. So we're trying to make sure that we're building on those skills. We're not just throwing them in at the deep end with adventurous activities, residential, just in year 6. And then when those students aren't ready and they don't make it there, they never have an experience like that. Also, the complex day visits, these field trips that you're undertaking, are you making sure that you're doing a variety in a different location? Also, the learning objectives are different for the different year groups. You're not going for a beach study every year, and every year you do a rock pooling and that's all you do. Think about adding variety, increasing the breadth and the progression within that. So this resource, you can find it on the Learning Through Landscapes website, and that's on the Padlet, which I'll show you at the end. So all the resources that I'm talking about, you can get from the Padlet. Linking your outdoor learning into the monitoring and evaluating cycle of your school is really key to keeping on top of it and as a pedagogy. If no one is observing and evaluating what outdoor learning is being undertaken and whether it's meeting the needs of your learners, the needs of the new curriculum, and it's moving the learners along, then can you really be sure that it's actually meaningful and it's of value to your school? So the best way to monitor the impact of outdoor learning on attainment and the wider curriculum is just by adding it to your current monitoring and evaluation systems. So do not reinvent or invent a new system for monitoring and evaluating outdoor learning if you have already got aspects of outdoor of evaluating and monitoring on a very good cycle within your school. So thinking about lesson observations. When you do lesson observations, make some of them or a proportion of them outdoor lessons. Data analysis. When you're collecting data, make sure that you're integrating outdoor learning in whatever data you're collecting. Learning walks with your governors, take them outside as well. Work scrutiny. Are you looking, when you're looking for work scrutiny, opportunities for outdoor learning or where outdoor learning is actually being shown through the books? A lot of people worry about the fact that they've done outdoor learning, but there's nothing in the books. So is that going to be a problem, or as a school, are you moving away from that and moving more towards a folder in their hub drive, and that's got outdoor learning in? Therefore, your work scrutiny should be part of using that as well, looking at their drive and looking at the folders they've got within that. If you are still focused on the books, and some schools still are, how can we make sure that outdoor learning is being shown in their books? Again, don't try and just reproduce what you've got. Don't get a recount every time you go outside. Don't have to take photos every time. What you need to do is to embed it into the planning so that your outdoor learning activity you're building on when you come back in. So say, for example, you undertook data collection, you did a mini beast hunt. When you come back, the evidence in your book is a graph of the data that you collected. And it's obvious that you did outdoor learning because you couldn't have found those bugs without going outside. So that should be the evidence in your books, not that you've just taken ages taking a photo of what you did outside. Pupil, staff and parent voice. Again, you've got that integrated into your monitoring already. Ask them about outdoor learning. Think about inside your notice boards, class information on your website, as I said, all that, any other ways in which you're monitoring the way in which things are going on in your school. Make sure there's outdoor learning within that. Putting it into your meeting minutes and your agendas for staff meetings or governors meetings, so you are revisiting it regularly and it's part of that process. And then consider ways in which you could collect. This is the only additional one, so all of those are what you do already, just to kind of highlighting outdoor learning as you do it. But the only additional one that you might want to do is to gather ways in which you monitor the impact of outdoor learning as an intervention. So you've got interventions for literacy and numeracy, but you may have some health and well-being issues. You might consider, right, we've got little Johnny here who's got health and well-being issues. We might monitor him and see what the impact of him having more outdoor learning is having. And that might just be undertaking a questionnaire beforehand, observing him, writing some notes on how he's improving in his social skills or interaction skills or in resilience. And then you can see that hopefully is going to be caused by the outdoor learning. So do not create a new and different monitoring service process for outdoor learning. There is no point at all. And if it's fully embedded in your planning and teaching and learning, then the systems that you've got for monitoring should naturally include outdoor learning within it. Just tweak the system to make sure that there is a proportion of the outdoor lessons being observed. Outdoor learning is included in other monitoring, and then therefore you'll keep on top of it. So the results of this monitoring and evaluation should really feed into future planning. And again, this should naturally be the case if you've got this self-evaluation process going on, this cycle within your school, and outdoor learning is fully embedded into what you are doing. You might take some extra care to ensure that evaluation of outdoor learning experiences influences future planning by maybe sending out surveys to get feedback. Feedback from students is always good. So it could be about specific outdoor learning experiences. Again, don't do this after every outdoor learning session. It could be that you did a residential or that you did a field trip, but also find out from the parents. Have they talked about the outdoor learning? Maybe get some input from them. Most schools are doing surveys just before they have an inspection, but wouldn't it be great if this was a regular thing and you had outdoor learning as one of the questions you were asking about them? What do they think about what their children are doing in outdoor learning at school? And as I said before, this outdoor learning governor, if you've got this additional role of outdoor learning governor, great opportunity for them is to come and observe outdoor learning across the year groups and trying to find it within the evidence, and then feedback to the governors and report back to see what the variety of the breadth and the depth of experience are, because they'll be able to see the whole school there as well. And if you haven't got an outdoor learning governor, then maybe your outdoor learning coordinator can report to the governors and tell them what they're doing as a school across the board. Now, like all aspects of teaching and learning, the important thing to identify and, if possible, measure is impact. So if you're undertaking a breadth and depth of outdoor learning in your provision, but it's not impacting the learner's knowledge, skill, or professional and social development, then it's not working. So you need to provide provision of outdoor learning that has an impact. And if you do that, then your staff will feel confident, and they'll also be encouraged to further implement more meaningful outdoor learning And it's a great way to persuade reluctant staff as well as the governors of the value of that outdoor learning. It's also evidence for Estin as well. So consider ways that you look for impact of provision in school at the moment and see how you can use the same system for monitoring impact of outdoor learning. So again, as I said, don't try and measure all of the outdoor learning and the impact of all of it on learners. Maybe think about some key values or priorities in your school and think about how you could do a before and after questionnaire on or an assessment of some kind just on those key aspects. So it could be that you're assessing the impact of outdoor learning on health and well-being, or on their resilience, or on their independence. So just pick something specific. You can also assess the impact of outdoor learning on the quality of the education as the school. So such as looking at the range of teaching approaches being offered. So obviously, if you're doing more outdoor learning, you're going to be using a greater range of teaching approaches. Also think about your teachers' skills and development. Great to do a before and after, especially if you're doing some CPD, about how they feel about outdoor learning. So if you do a skills audit in outdoor learning, how do they feel about it? And then do some CPD, let them have a go at trialing things in their outdoor learning teaching, and then do another audit to see how confident they feel, see if you've improved their development. You also get some student engagement as well. So it could be that you're getting students to ask each other what they think. So some self-evaluation and peer evaluation. And think about more than just development of the curriculum. We've got the whole child as well, especially when we're talking about health and well-being. Sorry, excuse me, I've got cramp in my leg. So make sure when you've got this information, you communicate this impact of outdoor learning with your stakeholders. So communicate it with the students so they realise the power of the outdoor learning, the parents as well, and teaching staff, governors. And again, don't reinvent the wheel. So just use the same methods that you use in school for other aspects of teaching and learning. So for children, you're talking about providing verbal feedback, written feedback, reports, your governor's reports, staff teaching reviews, and then just again embedding it into the processes that are in place already. And then thinking more broadly about the impacts of the entire outdoor learning experience you offer, you might want to identify skills and ways in which you can impact the learners' daily lives and their later life choices. So how are you actually enhancing the engagement? How are you getting them to really engage in their learning? Any life skills that you're developing? Are you supporting their physical and mental well-being? Sorry, I'm going to stand on my leg. Are you providing them with opportunities to think about their community and to provide them with opportunities to identify what's going on in the community? Maybe understanding and a better appreciation of the world around them, or aspiring them to actually take more action, to be better involved in the environment, or maybe in political or the cultural sphere. And also giving them opportunities to see potential career paths that you couldn't see in a school environment. Now, some important aspects of outdoor learning which need coordinating from the outdoor learning coordinator are aspects such as risk management. Now, this shouldn't really be left just to the outdoor learning coordinator, but it is the responsibility of the outdoor learning coordinator to make sure that it's disseminated between all staff, and the entire staff are then supported by the outdoor learning coordinator or the head teacher to implement this. Now, a lot of risk management is all about putting systems in place. So thinking about ensuring that they've got a robust risk management procedure, and also you've got policies such as a risk management policy or any way in which you're thinking about the risks. Now, I'm not talking about risk assessments now. I'm talking about procedures in place so that the staff actually consider what happens if something goes wrong. So if you've considered that in a risk management policy or procedures, it gives you much more insight than just doing a risk assessment. So if you've looked at some play equipment and you've gone, right, so what happens if somebody goes underneath there? Right, they get their finger caught, it gets squished, they put water on it. Okay, is that acceptable risk? Yes, okay, they're allowed to go underneath that. But if you just say, nope, nobody's allowed underneath that, we're not going to say why, then nobody will kind of buy into it and they won't understand. So think about those what if. Is really useful to think about risk management as opposed to just risk assessment. So if you think about the situations for your outdoor learning activities and procedures and think about eventualities, then it gives you much more confidence and your staff more confidence in the activities you're doing. So if you've got safe operating procedures, then your staff will feel happy in going outside. They'll know what's acceptable, what's not. Are they allowed to climb trees? Or the pupils allowed to climb trees? How high are they? And you might want to put this into some safe operating procedures that you then share with your staff. It might be safe operating procedures of your school grounds, your local learning area. So that will be like what your staff ratios are. You must have X number of staff when you go to visit the local park. It could be further afield or residential. So again, expectations and how we make sure we've got safety. So it could be a policy for getting in touch with the head teacher when it's out of office hours, who's the person to call if you've got an issue, who's the contacts in local authority if you've got near misses or if you've got, if you do have an accident. You also need to have emergency procedures and scenarios. Great little role-playing activity to do in an ads or an insect is to think about what could potentially go wrong in a certain environment. And then if it did go wrong, what would you do? And I know it's a bit scary thinking about things going wrong, but if you've role-played what you would do, who would be in charge, who would be managing the situation, who would call on the phone, what roles and responsibilities are given to who, then when it actually, if it does happen, then you feel much more confident. Also, the information gathering and sharing before you go on a trip. So encouraging the use of preliminary visits. So going to a location before you visit it with your class. So preliminary visits are a great way of undertaking your own risk assessment and also thinking about your students, because no risk assessment given to you by an organization is suitable for your learners. Your learners need specific risk assessments. So if you've gone on a field trip and you've never been to the site before, how do you know your learners will be able to cope with that location? So preliminary visits, but also sharing that information across staff. So if somebody goes on that visit again, they can talk to someone who's been on a preliminary visit if they can't go themselves. What accidents and near miss records are you going to keep? And making sure that if you go on a trip and something happened, that is then put onto the risk assessment form. So the next person who looks at the risk assessment is aware what happened last time, so they can try and preempt it and make sure it doesn't happen again. And again, putting in place methods for ensuring families are kept informed. Again, this is probably part of your procedures already, but do the staff who are taking the field trip actually know? And so if something goes wrong, do they know the procedure to go? All of this, of course, has to be undertaken through training of the staff and the expectations for undertaking things like risk assessment. So everybody should be trained in risk assessment, all staff, so they're empowered in doing that. They also have to be empowered to do dynamic risk assessments, which is something you do on the ground as you are in any location any location at all. And again, if you want more information on this, we did a whole session on risk assessments as well. If you are undertaking risk assessments, you should really encourage all your staff to undertake risk assessments for the activities they're doing. If that's just not feasible, then you can have these ones that you've written as a outdoor learning coordinator in a bank, but please make sure that they adapt them and adapt them for their cohort, because of course it could be that that's changed. It could be that they've got specific learning requirements. Also for the time of year, it might be for a different location if it's a generic risk assessment for an activity. So providing a bank of risk assessment on a shared drive is useful, but it's not good if the teachers then feel they don't have any ownership over it. And it's like, oh yeah, I'll just print that off and they've done it. Somebody's done it for me. I don't have to think about it. So making sure they realize that it's part of their responsibility still. Now, training and procedures should also be in place in terms of benefits of risk taking. So I've said about making sure that in your health and safety policy, you don't remove all risks. So therefore you can actually cover that risk management side of the health and well-being AOLE. But you need to make sure that everybody knows what is acceptable risk so that you're all saying the same thing. So you need a whole school saying the same thing and empowering the learners to manage their risk so that they can actually benefit from risky activities. Now, if you want more information on this, there was loads of guidance on the OEAP, so that's the Outdoor Education Advisory Panel. They've got national guidance for supporting all aspects of risk management. That's the point of call to go to get information on that. But if you make sure that your staff training is implementing your risk management procedure and you update that regularly, and again, put it into your cycle of CPD for all your staff, keep a record of which staff have undertaken risk management training, and then ensure that that's part of your induction process. If you've got any new trainees, teachers, or you've got new staff, you've also got some mentoring going on, taking place. So inexperienced staff can have a trained member of staff helping them to fill in that risk assessment. And all that will, again, make sure that it's fully embedded. Now, you also may want to upskill a proportion of your staff so they've actually got more than just the risk assessment training. So you could do training in educational visit coordinator. Somebody in your staff will be an educational visit coordinator, but you may want more than one. You also may want to have visit lead training. So this is all training provided by the OEAP that you can actually do most of it online now. But also don't forget to involve your students in your risk management. So when you're undertaking lessons outside, then get them to think about the hazards and risks, discuss them at the start of the activity, and then think about how you're going to keep yourself safe, and just involve the learners in this risk management by getting them to think about producing their own risk assessments for your site or for local learning areas, or just highlighting the hazards. The other thing, of part of being a sector leading school, and this is what all schools are doing who are being sector leading, and actually at the moment in every aspect of the new curriculum, is sharing best practice. So consider how other schools in your cluster who have shared best practice in aspects that they've been deemed sector leading in or very good at, and then consider how you could share your experience of outdoor learning with them. Now, you could support other settings like your own to embed outdoor learning by sharing what good practice you have done. So how have you embedded it? It could be that you've got one specific aspect of outdoor learning that you feel you excel at and you want to share that. Or it could be your whole school approach or ethos that you feel that is really good sector leading example of outdoor learning. Now, it could be how you use outdoor learning in your curriculum design for the new curriculum. It could be that risk management is something you're very good at. So consider ways that you could advise other settings in your cluster. So you could provide an inset session demonstrating best practice, showing them how you use your school grounds. Or you could create a document showing a case study of what worked well. And sometimes it's quite powerful to also talk about what didn't go well. I think that's really useful to schools to say, we did this didn't work well, next time we'll do it this way, so we can learn from that as well. And a really good way of sharing best practice, which I very much appreciate, is next session, session 20, the last session in this course, is all about sharing best practice. So if you would like to take part in next week's Outdoor Learning the Curriculum session and actually share something you've done, could be an outdoor session that worked really well, it could be an ethos you've got, it could be a way you've changed your planning, it's anything to do with outdoor learning. If you would like to share that next week, then that's a really great way of sharing best practice. But also, don't forget to share with your school community as well and beyond. So more than just the teachers there. So through things like assemblies, lots of schools have eco club that do assemblies, but how about a specific outdoor learning activity that you did? Share some of that in your assembly. It could be that you can have a celebration of what you've done so far in school. If you've had especially contributions from the local community, invite them in to see what you've done with those donations. So you could have done school grounds development, or an enterprise project, so developing a STEM area in your outdoor area, to bring them in to see where their money went or their resources. And lovely activity that we did in a school that I was working with, that I did a whole session, a whole term on outdoor learning. They then invited a school from the other side of the city. So they were in a rural school, they brought in an urban school, and the children took the outdoor learning session. They were the teachers, and they actually taught the outdoor learning that I've taught to them to the children, and they shared their best practice there. And it was a fantastic opportunity for the urban school to see the rural school environment, but also for the learners to become the teachers and to share their excitement over the outdoor activities that they did. You could also consider building a kind of passport for your school, for your children, for outdoor learning. A lot of schools now are building some kind of passport of activities that they want to do before they leave, and building outdoor learning into that, and then providing them with passport or a certificate at the end of it. So a bit like based on the 50 things to do before your 11 3/4 from the National Trust. But if you do it school wise, so it's suitable for your school. I had a school that came out with me the other day, and they were year sixes, and they all had one thing left to do their 60 things before they left school. And that last thing was jumping over waves. So we were at the beach, they jumped over the waves, and then they got their passport. Also, of course, you've got social media, tweeting, etc. But think about creating films. There's a school I did I awarded gold to the other day, who did amazing films using their outdoor space to create a fantastic backdrop to a film. So using that to share best practice as well would be amazing. And you can share that either on websites, or if you can't do it socially, you can do it to other school leaders. Think about your website as well, sharing some best practice there. And also there's the opportunity to share case studies. The Council for Learning Outside the Classroom are always after case studies of outdoor learning. And if you provide them with a case study, then they're very appreciative and probably give you something, I'm guessing. And also other publications, again, it promotes your school, you're sharing best practice, which is great for your professional development, and it widens your reach in terms of people seeing what you are doing. You can also invite school teachers in to see what you're doing. There's some schools around our way which are very good at outdoor learning, and lots of schools go to visit them to see what they're doing, to share best practice that way. Last thing is not specifically to do with curriculum content, but you might want to integrate some whole school projects into your school that provide you with opportunities for outdoor learning beyond what you can do in your school grounds, your local learning area, and school trips. So these are organizations that provide opportunities, and they're awards of some kind, which again, really well structured, most of them. So you can just buy into those, and you provide great opportunities for your learners. The John Muir Award, you can do that from any age, and you can decide which level you're doing, and you have to basically explore somewhere. It's meant to be a wild place, but there's so few wild places now. It can be just somewhere locally. It could be a park, it could be a field, it could be a beach. It's just somewhere local to you. That's important. So walking distance of your school. And you apply for John Muir Award. It's completely free. You just fill in what you're going to do to explore, and then find out about, so it's explore, discover, protect, and share. So you need to spend so many hours exploring a place, and that could be anything from curriculum content, finding out about it. Discover, so do a bit of research, maybe create something. Again, that's probably your follow-up work. You then need to conserve it, so you need to do something to protect that place, maybe plant trees, do a litter pick, write some signs up, and then you need to share it. So that could be an assembly, could be that you've done a little film. So it fits in really nicely with the new curriculum and outdoor learning as a whole. You've also got some things to do with schools that it kind of seems sad that if you're doing outdoor learning and you're embedding it into your school, and you're going out to use that environment, if you're not doing something to protect the wider environment, then it's kind of counter. So for example, if you're doing all about protecting the environment in your school grounds, you've got a really good ethos about it, nobody drops litter outside, but in school you're using plastic cups to get water, you're not recycling, then it doesn't really mesh. So thinking about, right, okay, we want everyone to appreciate what the outdoors is for health and well-being, and we want to protect it. What can we do as a school to also protect it and to embed that into our learners so they're lifelong protectors? And there's a couple of things that you can do. Plastic-free schools is a great one, which is provide you with a program. They actually will teach you how to protect and trying to reduce the amount of plastic you've got, but also protect environments that are affected by plastic pollution. And Ocean Guardians, if you're close to the sea, if you want to almost adopt a beach and then try and conserve that, and you don't have to visit it all the time, but again, provides you with a lot of resources and a lot of expertise in trying to conserve these environments. If you want to do something a bit more broad, then you could just make your own, as I said, passport based on something like the 50 things to do. So providing your own project. So every child who leaves this school must have done these things. And within those, especially if your students are not doing anything out of school hours, then it gives you an impetus to make sure they are getting the opportunities while they're in school. And I would go have a look at the 50 things to do before your 11 3/4 on the National Trust website. It's on the Padlet, but also think about really normal things, because sometimes they just don't have the opportunity. Build a sandcastle, dam a stream, jump in a puddle, roll down a hill, really simple ones. Don't go for climb Mount Everest or, go to another country. Make sure they're accessible to all, but they are things that you feel a child should do by the time they leave your school. And you could do it in secondary as well, because of course you just change them so they're more suitable for the older year group. In terms of the older year groups as well, when you get into secondary, you've got the opportunity of doing things like the Duke of Edinburgh Award, again, much broader than what you do in school. So you've got an expedition, so you have to walk carrying all your kit, you have to undertake a training of a skill, some physical recreation, and a community project. But also that framework is also available for what's called a junior Duke. So there's an organisation that set up a junior version of the D of E you can do in school, in primary school. So again, you can still do a little walk, carrying a little rucksack, don't have to do necessarily a camp out, but you could, learning a skill, doing some physical recreation, and doing a community project. So it's quite similar to the Welsh Baccalaureate as well. And again, feeding things like the Welsh Baccalaureate with the outdoor learning, feeding those together, it kind of makes it a bit more meaningful as well. So this community project that they've got to design, can we make it so that it's improving the community of their outdoor space? The project that they're doing, can we use the outdoors to make sure that that project is meaningful to them in their outdoor space? And of course, for all schools, we've got eco schools. A lot of schools are doing that. But again, are you really playing lip service, or are you really engaging in that? So are you trying to go for your gold, your green flag or your platinum flag? And are you actually looking at your school and trying to embed the culture of eco schools into the culture of your school? You're making it part of the ethos. Therefore, you really are embedding the broader aspects of outdoor learning. Okay, right. What I thought, if you want to, I won't bother doing breakout rooms because there's not many of you, but if you want to chat about these, we can have a little talk about where you are now in terms of your outdoor learning journey. What are you doing at the moment? And think about things that you've got that might look at ways in which you are sector leading, or what you think going forward you would like to be sector leading in outdoor learning. So I'm going to stop sharing. There we go. So if you want to contribute, you're very welcome to say what you are doing at the moment, and then we can think of ways in which you might go forward in terms of sector leading. So if you'd like to, anyone want to jump in?
Hello.
Hello, Levi. Right.
Yes, I'm good, thank you. So I gave an inset last Wednesday, to the teachers about what we've been doing already and about the course, and they like the idea of the muster points.
Oh, great.
So we've had a massive discussion now about muster points and where we could start to have them and what places would be quite nice. So we've had a lot of discussion about that, as well as getting some equipment together.
Excellent.
So yeah, so that's where we are at the moment.
Where do you see yourself going forward? Where do the staff feel they want to go?
So they feel, I know that Foundation Face said that they are already doing them, but they have admitted that they do use the outdoors as just taking children out, not using it fully. But we have decided that we want to, because I would like to be the coordinator. I would like to do
Great.
something along those lines with outdoor learning. So my school is very positive at the moment and are happy. So I know that we're happy to start doing our muster points. And I know that my head said about next year having another inset and trying to sort it all out and see what we can do that way.
Great.
So
you're on the way then. That's fantastic.
I like to think so.
So what do you think, if you were saying, right, I want to be sector leading, what would you think your school would be like at that point? What were your hopes and dreams of outdoor learning?
Hopes and dreams our hopes are to get out a bit more and use, because where my school is based, we have a lot of fields, which is really good. So we're in a little village school, so we've got quite a few areas around our school that we can go. For example, Dovering Gardens. So it's getting us to actually go there. The only thing that we have problems with is because the only way to get out of our school is lanes.
Oh,
so it's not walking distance. Well, it could be if it was normal roads, but because
no
it's
pavement.
lanes, there's no pavement. So our issues would be transporting the children to those places. And at the moment, with buses, they are quite expensive.
They're stupidly expensive. And yeah, if it's just for a short session, it's like, ooh. So yeah, so you've identified the barrier, that's good, but you've also identified the potential.
Yes. And we have identified that there are quite a few fields that are walkable. So we could easily go out and around that area. And we know there's some woods behind us, but it's just contacting like farmers to see if we could use those woods just for us to access.
Excellent. See, that's it, being proactive about it. That's the fantastic opportunities that you can provide. So that sounds amazing. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know that my head has asked about whether or not it would be possible if you could come in one day in the new year to come out and just discuss everything with the teachers or do an inset.
Yeah.
With us. So I did say I'll ask and put that across.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah, send me an email and we'll see what dates.
Oh, that'd be perfect. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Sue, did you want to share? Did you want to say where you are at the moment?
I don't. Can you see me?
No.
No, I don't know why. Yeah, I am here. I'm not sure why it's not coming on really. Right. Yes. We obviously.
So I've clicked on something. I don't know if that.
Or that's come over. Yeah. Yeah, we're in a bit of limbo, really, if I'm being honest. I started the forest school training, the level 3, and so I've been on a few sessions with that, which is very intense. Outdoor learning is something we're very lucky, like what you said. We've got an area at the side of the school that has been developed quite a few years ago, but due to staffing changes, finances, and I suppose even time constraints, it's been sort of left.
So is it overgrown now?
Well, it's a bit of both, really. It's a lot of it's been cut down for ease because it was getting wild. So it just needs a lot of TLC, if I'm being honest. You know, we've got a willow arch that's excessive, that needs, you know, trimming back, and it just needs a lot of work. And like I say, years ago there was waterproofs and everything, but where they are now, and you know, things that were given to outdoor learning. We had an outdoor pod made for, you know, children to get dressed and put their clothes and everything. That's now a bike shed.
Oh.
You know, so it's just a complete overhaul, really. I mean, I love the idea of what we said. The start off with doing a questionnaire where the staff feel as if. I think at the moment it's like what you said there, that it was about, you know, it's mainly foundation that go out. Stage 2 don't, or don't as much as us, really. So it's trying to get that uniform across, really.
Yeah, I'll put the audit on the Padlet. So if you want to use the audit, you can then, that's a great starting point to see where you are and then see what the barriers are. And then, yes, you can then come up with an action plan. If it is grounds development, then sometimes if you can get parents in, I don't know how good your parents are, to come in, do some clearing, and then at least, you know, right, we got a starting point. We can actually get there now. We can try and establish a routine then.
I think that's the key thing. It's having a, you know, a realistic action plan, really, that, you know, what's our main priorities, really.
Yeah, and also small steps.
Yeah.
Don't expect us all to be going out every day and the ground to be pristine tomorrow. You know, think, right, short term, what's achievable, you know, longer term, and have a proper plan over the few years. That's important. And
that's part of the reason, sorry, why I was late this evening. I've moved into nursery and reception in September. It was the open evening, and I took them round the grounds.
Oh, fab!
And they were so taken aback by it. It was untrue, because couldn't believe how, you know, how it's going to be used and how those children are going to be out. Like, with just something simple, I just put a tree swing up. And they were like, wow, as children, that's what we did. And, you know, I feel really embarrassed that my child's never actually been on a tree swing, and therefore, so it was really, really very nice. So yeah, it's and like I say, setting the stall out, really, I've asked them to provide the waterproofs, because
yeah,
not all of them will, but do you know what, we need to have a go on this and put the ownership, because I have said, whatever the weather, we're going to be out. There's no bad weather, it's bad clothing.
Yeah, so, and if they buy into it, then you kind of half the battle's won. So that's really important.
And at young age as well, I think you need to get them, really, because
definitely. And then it goes through the school, because it's like, this is the expectation, and it's through the school. It's not just in foundation phase.
Yeah, this is it. So like I say, action plan, if you've got any information on that, that would be great. If you appreciated on where to start with action planning, and like I say, questionnaires. And
yeah, I'll just show you the rest, because this the Padlet, if I share the screen, the next bit shows you the Padlet. So this is just a bit that might to help you get there. So identify the strengths in your practice and say how you could share that once you get to that point. But then I've got some resources. So I've got my Outdoor Learning Challenge cards. All the CPDs I've done, you can now buy on the Nature Days shop. I'm also repeating all of these in September. So there's going to be all 20 of them done again. I'm also starting a subscription service. And if you want to share best practice next week, I'm going to give the people who share free subscription for the year. And then this is the Padlet. If I click this, you should see it. Can you see that? I might have to do a new share. New share. There. So this is the Padlet here. And if you scroll along, why is it all missing? It's got all the courses that I've done. Everything's got a title, and it's got links to, not sure why this is showing, not showing it properly, but it's got links to, why is that not working? Yes, that's better. So if you go along the bottom, it's got all the AOLEs, it's got all the courses that I've done so far, links. These are all links to either documents or websites. If you come to the bottom, the end ones, you've got Becoming Sector Leader, you've got links to the recordings, but also to all those organisations that I said. but along here you've got a school development ground here, so you've got some things that you can do. I've got a YouTube channel which has got some ways in which you can develop your school grounds, also places and organizations that will help you, support you do that. The school ground, the Learning Through Landscape provides a grant you might want to look into. There's a award for £500 of school equipment plus training on how to use your school grounds. So you can apply for that. So that's the nature grant. Where is that? Is that it? And they've got, yeah, there it is. It's this one here. And they've got different times where they apply. So you can apply now. The next one finishes on the 2nd of September. That's when the closing date is. So if you do have school development grounds that you want, this is a great way to get some funding towards it as well. So have a look at there and see if you can get some funding, which is always useful, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, have a look at the Padlet, and also
Can I just ask, this is probably a thick question now, but with this, I've never used this Padlet. Do you need a code or anything?
No, you just need the link to it.
Oh,
So
right.
when I send you the recording of this session, you will get a PowerPoint with this PowerPoint, and on the front page, if I end the show, the front page, you will see it says for recording on that side, it will say for a recording of this, you click here or something like that. Click on that, you'll get this recording, but also you can click on all of the slides, and all of these locations and hyperlinks will be live. So if you just click on the Padlet and then you can share that with anyone you like, all that information. There's a QR code for it as well. So you can, yeah, any information that's on the Padlet is all, available for anybody who wants to look at it. So, and yeah, if you've got any other questions, of course, that's my contact details then. And also next week, as I said, I'm doing this final session that I really need people to go to because it's going to be live. So I know it's really busy at the moment. I've got so many people booked on the course, but so few can actually come live. So if you can come live, that would be amazing.
When is it? Sorry.
Sorry?
What day is it? Sorry.
It's Wednesday. So next Wednesday, the 13th of July, 4 till 6. So I'm hoping people can contribute live, but if you can't, what I can do is I can just either get some information from you in an email, or even do a Zoom call, record it, and then show it on there. And if you basically share something, you'll get a free subscription to the Nature Days subscription service when it launches in September, which will be loads of outdoor learning, lesson plans, and all stuff to do with the new curriculum. And so I'm hoping we'll be able to share best practice. And also I've got some case studies that I've done through grounds development using schools, and I'll share some of my things that I've done as well. But it's just really nice when teachers come together and start sharing what they've done. And then I find that that's the best way for teachers to learn really good practice. So, and also what hasn't worked, I find that's really useful, because then you can then go, oh, okay, I was going to do that. Right, I'm not now. I'm going to change my mind. So anything that you would like to share would be fantastic. So, right, we've gone over, I'm afraid. So that's it. I hope that was useful. And again, look at all the resources. What I'll do now is I will put the recording onto YouTube and then put a private link onto the PowerPoint. Once I've done that, I will send it all out. If you've got a Hub account, make sure I've got your Hub address, because I can share it on Hub. If you're not on Hub, then I'll share it on WeTransfer, and you need to make sure you download it, because the link only lasts for a week. So it's a limited time. But if you do lose it for some reason, just email me and I can send you another copy, but you'll have that then for forever. So.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.